ready. Good. All right. I will call this meeting to order. It is February 10th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. This is a meeting of the Communication and Policy Committee of the Concord School Board. My name is Cara Meeker. I'm the chair. With me tonight are committee members Liz Boucher, Barb Higgins, and Jim Richards. Also joining us is member Sarah Sadowski. We're happy to have you. We also have tonight Superintendent Kathleen Murphy and Karen Fisher-Anderson. We have, hopefully, a fairly streamlined agenda tonight. You have a pretty thick packet in front of you. We are going to go through policies that we have seen a few times now, so I'm just going to go over them very quickly. Policy 161, Non-Discrimination and Equal Opportunity Employment. We've been workshopping this for a while. Hopefully tonight you are going to see a clean draft that is what I consider ready for moving to the full board for first reading, but we can go through it step by step. With Policy 161, we have two documents that kind of accompany it. We have the plan, which is no longer Appendix 1. It was formerly called Appendix 1, but is now called the School District Non-Discrimination, Equal Opportunity Employment, and Anti-Discrimination Plan. That was at the request of this committee to separate it from the appendices so that it can be housed with other plans like the Suicide Prevention Plan, things like that.
That makes sense.
You should also have, I don't know if we have it tonight, which is Appendix A. Oh, it's attached to the attached to the back of the plan.
Yep.
Is now Appendix A, formerly Appendix B, which has been modified to really, it's just stripped down, and we're going to see contact information for district and outside agencies as they relate to the anti-discrimination plan. So those are the accompanying documents for 161. We also have tonight 161.1, Discrimination and Harassment Grievance Procedure. This lays out the specifics for the procedures around claims of harassment or discrimination that are defined and outlined specifically in 161. This is a new policy, so we're not going to see any strikeouts, highlights, red letters, anything like that. It's all new. And I should mention that 161 is a repeal and replace, so it is also fully clean. This should also be, in my opinion, ready to move to the full board tonight, but we will go through it as well. Also in your packet, you have three versions of Concord School District Policy 544. I'm going to have everybody take the first two, called Concord School District Policy 544, first read, turn it over. We do not need it. After that, you're going to see a color copy of what looks like a pre-draft, so like changes that we've made sort of unofficially leading up to this moment. We discussed this at the last meeting, so I'm also going to have you turn it over. Because the only thing we're really going to be looking at tonight is this copy that just got distributed. It is now what is called a first draft that incorporates the changes that we discussed over the last couple of meetings.
I don't have that.
Let's make sure Barb has that. I just printed it. We just printed it. Is that, this is only half of it.
Sarah, that's the other half.
This is the other half.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's for you. So we will review that in full tonight. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns before we proceed?
Hundreds, but nothing to do with this.
Okay. Only
You know.
Communication and policy related.
Gotcha.
Life questions,
Yeah.
we're going to wait till after the meeting, for the parking lot meeting.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so with that, go ahead and turn to Policy 161. It should have in the upper left corner, first reading draft. And it's going to look a little different than what we've seen before. Karen is very kind and allows me to mess with these documents so that we can properly assign them letters, numbers, paragraphs, so that we are able to cite them in the future. You'll remember the previous policy, the paragraphs just sort of floated on their own. We have deviated a little from our preferred paragraph numbering because this was already sort of set previously where we begin with Rome 1 and then move on to number 1. And so I will ask, at this point, I know, Sarah, you haven't seen this yet, but since we've all been working on this, are there any questions around the text? Do we want to go through the language? Or are we good with just reviewing sort of first glance? The font is different. It's been changed. The paragraphs have been numbered. But by and large, this is the same policy that we have seen before. I'm trying to remember if there are any further updates. Karen, I think all I did was just do a quick search to make sure capital words were capitalized,
Yep,
non-capitals were
and I
not
read it over
capitalized.
like this morning, and I thought it looked great.
Good.
Just a small format thing.
Yes, please.
On page 8, the legal references, that should be bolded.
Oh, no.
Yeah, small thing, just to keep it consistent. I thought everything else looked great.
Oh, legal references. What do you want bolded?
On
Oh,
legal
the-
references, we normally bold on page 8,
Yep.
right before we list them all,
Okay.
just so they set themselves apart. It's all been updated as far as the new language for 415, which is the old language of the 2020 version of Title IX and not the 2024 version, so I changed the name of that policy.
Yep, and I think we did that throughout. The last time we saw
Very
this, it was really
consistent.
like technical updates because 415 changes were no longer relevant.
Right.
We're kind of
So,
backing
other than
into.
that, I thought it looked great.
Okay. Would anyone like a chance to review language? With that, I will take a motion to move policy 161 to the full board.
So moved.
So moved for first reading. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Barb Higgins. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Do you want me to count them as 5-0, the vote?
It's up to you. We don't usually have non-sitting member,
Yeah,
committee
'cause
members.
otherwise you
vote.
need to
Yeah.
seat her on the
Yeah.
committee, so.
No, then
No,
I
just
would.
4-0.
4-0,
Yeah,
please,
I'm
yep.
glad she voted. I mean, if you vote, that's great.
Oh, I
but
didn't vote. I
Oh, okay,
abstained.
okay.
Yeah.
I guess I
thank you very
couldn't,
much.
I couldn't tell. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so moving on to the plan, which I believe has not changed. The plan and Appendix A has not changed since the last time we met, but we chose not to move it to the full board without also moving 161, because it would have been odd to see the plan at the full board without 161. So unless there are questions or comments on language, I will take a motion to move the plan and Appendix A to the full board.
So moved.
Moved by Jim Richards. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Liz Boucher. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. 161.1.
That's considered, that's considered a first read too, right, Cara?
Actually, don't you have to do the, well, I guess it's the appendix, but it's.
I know, we just moved them together.
You did.
As a
Got it.
packet.
Thank
if
you.
that's what- yeah.
Yep, and appendix, got
And
it.
we're bringing that to the board
Yes.
Yes.
as a first read?
Yes.
Okay.
We had discussed this, whether or not to bring it all together as a unified packet.
Right.
And I think we said that because we approve plans separately from policy.
Yeah, it needs to stay separate.
That they need to stay separate.
Stay, okay.
So,
Yeah.
and then appendices don't require approval, but it's stuck to the plan anyway, so it's just along for
Well,
the ride.
I think it shows a comprehensive look at the entire product. I mean, people, that information is valuable for folks
Yeah.
if they're looking at policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. Policy 161.1, for those that were at the last meeting, I'm just going to show you visually. This is the one that we looked at before. It had just a few technical updates, which was to realign the name of the policies, policy 415 back to its previous iteration, to make consistent the ADA 504 coordinator, to say ADA 504, not 504 ADA. Let's see, we had a couple of words added, for instance, we made sure that anytime we mentioned days, that it said working days,
Right.
so that we all are on the same page with that.
That was often a special ed policy issue. What do days actually mean?
Yeah, exactly, which it really does matter. There is a substantive update that I wanted to make sure everybody can see, which is now now that it has numbers, we've also added numbers. Level 2 repeal, level 1. If you go to page 4, Pren 7, which is level 1 investigation and initial determination, and we go to Pren C, this previously discussed that the investigator, so whoever is investigating a report will turn over that report to the Title IX investigator for approval and then submission to the superintendent. The committee had noted that if the Title IX coordinator is not the investigator because of a conflict of interest, that it should not be turned over to the Title IX investigator. Upon completion, it should be handed over directly to the superintendent. So we did add language there, which is on page 5. Which now reads, if someone other than the Title IX coordinator served as the investigator, the Title IX coordinator will receive the report and either adopt the report as submitted or modify and complete the report upon further investigation and/or review of applicable policy and law, semicolon, except that if the Title IX coordinator has a conflict of interest in the investigation, the superintendent will receive the report from the investigator. How does everybody feel about that?
That's perfect.
Okay, great. And then the only other substantive change we made is in the consequences and remedies. Remember this discussion? We wanted to make sure that there was accountability when the superintendent is in charge of handing out consequences for violating the policy. That is now in Rome 8. In paragraph 1, it now reads, if the district determines that prohibited or illegal discriminatory conduct has occurred, the superintendent, new language, in consultation with the board, will make prompt, effective, and appropriate action to address the behavior. So we had gone back and forth about whether or not the superintendent should be the only person to sort of dole out these consequences. And she acknowledged that she's going to consult with legal and the board anyway, so we just added that language. Does anybody have any comments about that?
Just so we're clear though on that, and we talked about it a little last time, is
Yep.
you want to be really careful in consulting the board because several of you members could be on the appeal of the case.
Right.
So-
So the way that we had resolved that was that consequences and remedies happens after any potential appeal.
Yep.
So this would be after the window of time that the board would be deciding any appeals. So we wouldn't be consulted.
You'd be
Right.
careful about that
Right,
anyway.
but,
so.
but think about it, if somebody appealed a decision, then the consequences would be held at bay, right? They would not
Right.
be implemented because somebody appealed that decision, so once the board finally makes that decision, then you can apply remedies and consequences. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think the
Okay, good.
timeline
Yeah, I
works
do.
there.
Yeah.
Like, the
Yeah.
board isn't getting information before it's necessary.
Great.
I did have one change I
Yes,
wanted to
please.
bring up. On page 6, if we could, it's under Roman numeral, I guess it starts under 9 on page 5, and then you go to page 6, and you go down to B, Roman numeral, small Roman numeral 2. I thought it was a little redundant when I read it over this morning. I knew what I was trying to say, but here's what I recommend. I'd like to change it to say, complaints involving discrimination, harassment, or retaliation relative to a real or perceived educational disability, then it deviates to the next line below, will be addressed in accordance with this policy, and the Title IX coordinator shall refer the complaint to the ADA 504 coordinator. It was, the way it was written, it was very redundant. It must be referred to the ADA 504 coordinator.
We'll then address it, right?
And then address it, and I thought, why don't we just keep it short and sweet, add it up there and say, if it's a perceived educational disability, we'll follow obviously the rules in this policy, and it'll go to the ADA 504 coordinator.
So can you,
So she would strike out, must be referred
Yes,
to
I was
the
gonna say,
ADA
so
504
504
coordinator.
coordinator and set of complaints and start with will be addressed.
So,
Got it.
And
Thank you
then
for
the
that.
title coordinator, and the Title IX coordinator below, I zapped below, shall refer the complaint to the ADA 504 coordinator.
Yeah, and I don't even think we need the quotes around Title IX coordinator. We've defined it.
Yep,
All right.
Agreed.
so that was my only
Yeah,
change.
if we can say the same thing in less words,
Yeah.
always better.
Yep,
Always,
much better.
always better. Great. Okay, I have that change. Is there any other change?
I didn't have anything else.
Any changes? Okay, great. Understanding that that amendment will happen before it reaches the full board, do I have a motion to move policy 161.1 to the full board for first reading?
So moved.
Moved by Barb Higgins,
Second.
seconded by Liz Boucher. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You guys were cranking tonight. I think
Yeah,
I've
but
ever-
good work. We spent a few
Yeah.
meetings
Yes.
on that.
I watched a
think it's
couple of
good.
those. I'm sorry.
That's okay. All right, moving on, Concord School District Policy 544. So just to remind everybody of the timeline, Liz brought forward an idea for modifying the weapons policy to basically make it much more clear about what we permit on school property and to add an educational component to our weapons policy around educating families and staff around safe storage. What you have tonight in front of you with the gray shading is essentially the first draft that is no longer the pre-draft working draft of everything that we decided we'd like to see in a draft. I'm going to walk you through it basically paragraph by paragraph. We have added a purpose section. Most of our policies have a purpose or an introduction. This one didn't. So I just went ahead and added that language. I would like comments on that tonight. I am going to read it because it is new. The district is committed to maintaining a safe and secure environment in all facilities used by students, staff, and visitors. The purpose of this policy is to provide instruction regarding the possession of weapons or firearms on district property, as well as establish educational guidance on safe storage practices. You don't have to comment now, but excuse me, keep me posted. Then from there, we've added a definitions section. The definitions kind of floated alone previously, and so we've added a section. We now have a new definition for safe weapons storage that will give us reference when we get to the educational component. And we've modified weapon to include, Liz did a great job of including a list of things that are in various RSA sections. They're sort of all over the place. And one thing we did do is, remember we had lookalikes in the previous pre-draft? I don't think that is actually defined anywhere, and so we just took it out.
And that really helps when we talk to the principals, because that was, what does that mean?
Yeah,
Everybody's gonna have a different interpretation of a look-alike.
yeah.
So that was President Oyster River's policy. And I think it kind of must have, it may have came, I can't speak for them, but it may have came from the definition of firearms. Means any weapon including a started gun, which is defined there, but I found that out of the domestic violence.
A started gun, like a
RSA.
starter's pistol?
That's actually in the 20 US code too.
I got pulled over and had to put my hands on the hood of my car because I had a starter's pistol. Yeah.
Really?
Track coach, oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Until you get close.
Well, I
Yeah.
blew through a
Kara?
speed trap. I didn't
Yeah,
realize.
what's up?
It was like 20.
Just let me look back here. 3, on the highlighted section, a pistol, revolver, or other firearm slingshot.
Sling.
I believe it's a slingshot that you're trying to refer to there.
Well, past tense is slingshot.
Yes,
Right.
if it's
It was slung.
It was already used, yes, so.
I will admit that I know so little about what any of these things are that I just assumed it was
No, I
a
believe
real
it's
term.
Slingshot.
It's a
Like,
slingshot.
I assume stiletto is a thing that's not a heel,
Yeah, if
like a
that is
shoe.
true.
Like a billy, possibly an old-timey police instrument. But if it is in fact slingshot, I'm happy to make that change.
What's a dirk knife?
I have no idea what any of these things are. What is a
You
sword
could
cane?
ask Siri.
What is a blackjack?
Blackjack and dirk, those are small, solid things that you would hit somebody on the back of the head or hit somebody with.
Put them on.
This feels like, what's that game, Clue? Where you have the various
Yeah, yeah.
weapons
Yeah.
that you can use.
The butler, candlestick in the parlor.
But I don't think we need
With
to
a
put in
candlestick.
pipe or,
Right.
candlesticks
I mean-
or any of those things. Although,
The RSA
It is slingshot.
did I say slingshot?
It is slingshot, and it is one word. That is amazing.
I was gonna say, I've never heard that
No,
before.
I'm just gonna type it in.
Maybe it's a,
I know, somebody
Yeah.
Google it while we go through. Other than that, and the fact that I'm unacquainted with all of these weapons, does anybody have any comments about the list of possible weapons? Because I know, Karen, you had talked about maybe breaking out the martial arts weapons a little further.
Yeah, and I did
Are you
more
happy with
research
this?
on it and
A
looked at the
slingshot?
RSA, and I think you're okay.
Okay.
Yep.
A slingshot is a tool used to cast a line across
Yeah.
a space or a large stone that breaks loose from a slope. A maritime tool.
A maritime tool. I'm so glad we're covering that here.
I mean, you could choose not to list all of these.
No, I
They
want them
are in the
all.
RSA.
It's like a
want
weight.
them all.
Oh, it's like
slingshot
it's
says-
like the 35-pound weight in track and field.
Ah.
It's like a rock with a handle, and you can whomp somebody with it.
a
monkey
slingshot
fist.
may also refer to a small hand-powered projectile weapon. The classic form of a slingshot has a Y-shaped frame with two tubes or strips made of elastic material. So it is.
The slingshot is often called a monkey
Slingshot.
fist.
Slingshot is something that you're throwing with your
Not in
hand
the
as opposed
RSA.
to seeing it.
I know, if it's not in the RSA, it's not going in. But I appreciate that
put
we
it
are
in there.
being thorough.
Yeah, I saw
I'm
the same
happy to
thing.
report that we've had no incidences with
With slingshot.
Oh,
slingshots.
thank God. Thank you for
No challenges.
making sure we're good.
Yeah, that's.
Although we're
pretty-
educating the community now.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's pretty interesting.
There'll be,
You know,
there'll be a surge now of
I've seen a lot
slingshots.
more slingshots than slingshots, but if that's the RSA term, let's use it.
Let's do it. I mean, most of these meetings are pretty dry, so I'm glad we get to have a little bit of fun.
Little humor.
Moving on, we have a stricken paragraph that previously only covered guns and firearms. It's basically just modified enough that it was worth it to strike it so that we could write new language, which is the paragraph below. If you saw this in color, this would be red text. The reason there's red and highlight is because the red covers everything we've already seen, and the highlight covers changes that we've made since last week. So I just wanted to differentiate the two. I do want to make note in weapons and firearms on school property, Pren 1. We did modify the language the last time we met in the third sentence, which is student violations of this policy will result in parent notification and may result in both student disciplinary action and notification of law enforcement authorities. If you remember, as a committee, I think we just wanted to make sure that regardless of what happens, that parents are getting notified at the very least. And I think that was the assumption, that that happens anyway.
And the MOU that you have with the police department requires that we report it.
Requires. So right now it's may.
Should we change may to will?
Well, we've
Requires.
gone back and forth about this. So we had decided at the time that the only required action would be parental notification.
Right.
But you're saying that
Right,
actually.
if we have a weapon in school, then according to the MOU that we have with the Concord PD, that we report it.
Okay, so,
So it may result
Yep.
in disciplinary action, but will result in a report to the local law enforcement.
right, so
authorities.
I will rewrite this to say will result in parent notification and notification of local law enforcement authorities and may
Right.
result in student disciplinary action. Does that seem fair? Okay.
That would take care of it.
How often do we revisit that MOU?
We do it, like to try to do it every year.
Yeah.
Just finished it with Chief Osgood.
Okay. Is this a provision that you think works well?
I think it's important.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
You
big
know,
information to
if
hold on
a
to.
student has
Yeah.
if a student has a weapon, then often what happens is the police will visit the home of the student, talk to the parent about it, make sure that there aren't any guns accessible. They do a pretty good job with that, and I think that's a good way to help parents keep them informed, but also let youngsters know that that just doesn't work.
Okay.
having any kind of weapon, so.
And who knows the intent, right? It could be, it could be harm to someone else, it could be
Right,
protection,
right,
it
right.
could be
And
against
honestly, they go
themselves.
out with the notion that they want to provide information and education. They're not, we haven't had an arrest or anything like that, but it's always just a way that they can connect and let people know the seriousness, and what could result in harm. I like it.
Okay, great. Just checking in. All right, moving on. In Pren 2, from our previous conversation, it turns out that the board is responsible for expelling students, not the district, not the superintendent, not the administrators, so we
Correct.
wanted to make that clear. But that also expulsions, there is some flexibility that the superintendent can exercise when it comes to expulsions, and we added in language that obviously the superintendent should consult with the board before making that decision. So we added that language as well. No changes to paragraphs 3 or 4 from the pre-draft.
Cara, can we, on number 4, when I
Yes.
was looking at it, I had added in here where we say weapons and firearms under the control of law enforcement personnel are permitted. I added acting within their official duties.
Oh, yeah,
So-
not showing up.
Yeah,
off
and, you know,
duty.
because some of,
Right.
yeah, they should, definitely. So I just would recommend control of law enforcement personnel acting within their official duties are permitted on school property.
So Karen, we've had occasion where a member of the law enforcement agency is, and this has happened because principals have told me, that there might be a state trooper or a local police officer coming to school to pick up their youngster, or, be engaged in some way, and they're in full gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how
And
do
some
you?
of them may be at a game or something like that, but.
Yeah.
But I would say if they're in full gear, then they're not showing up in plain clothes, not knowing they're law enforcement carrying a gun.
No.
To me, picking up your kid in your uniform counts as they're wearing their
Yeah,
uniform.
but that's not their official capacity.
Right.
When they're
Yeah.
coming to school, they're coming as a dad or a mom,
Yeah.
not as an officer or a state trooper. So I don't know how you want to handle that. I just want you to, I'm fine with what you put in, but I just think that that's sometimes not the case.
Right.
Yeah. No, I
Other
hear you.
districts don't have it in.
As far as acting within the scope of, I think if we're gonna get challenged on anything, and we've talked about this before, is, this is federal law, this is not state law. You can carry weapons on board school property in New Hampshire, you can store them in your car as long as they are hidden. So if we get a Second Amendment, people that's why I thought it was so important to put that federal guidance in there, but I don't know how you differentiate. If a parent is here because they're a parent, not because they're a law enforcement officer, you're starting to, but, you just, as long as they don't threaten, harass, or intimidate,
Right,
which we
that
did
to
put
me is
in
the
there.
rule, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I feel like that's covered, in paragraph 1, it does say members of the public who violate this policy may be reported to local law enforcement.
Yep,
A member of the public could be a local law enforcement
sure.
person who, if they are acting in a threatening, harassing, or intimidating manner,
Yep.
are gonna get a call. But I hear your point, because we have a good friend who is a state trooper, and he is always dressed when he
Yeah.
picks up his kiddos. And I don't think anybody finds that threatening.
No, we have parents who come in and they can carry a concealed weapon. We don't know that necessarily, unless you see it, right? But they have the right to do that.
Yeah. So let
Like it or not.
me ask Karen, if after this discussion, have you changed your mind?
No, I just,
You still
when I read
recommend
it,
it?
when I read it through,
Mhm.
I was like, interesting. Because I wonder if they go to the supermarket, do they carry their weapon on them?
Yeah.
So I guess, it may be too restrictive then.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're certainly not gonna surrender it, and you'd have to ask them to leave, and you don't wanna have to ask a parent to leave. You just hope that.
Never do that, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Do we have does anyone else have any comments, opinions about adding that particular provision
I would leave it as is.
as is?
I guess it doesn't really, I don't know, because they're still a member of the public. And if they act in a threatening way, then we would. If they're not,
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
so
I'm going to recommend leaving language as is. thank you for that point,
No
Karen.
problem.
It's duly noted. We've got some stricken language that again is just massaged later, so it was easier to strike. No changes from paragraph 5, other than to say, instead of his/her judgment, it now says his or her best judgment. And then we get to safe.
Do we-
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Do we do that, or do we say there, based on prior?
Those are
other
those are our
policies?
options. Those are our options.
I was gonna
Exercise.
say, whatever's consistent with, language we use in our policies.
Yeah. I don't know. What's the path of least resistance
I'm not
since the
gonna-
language is already there?
I'm not gonna.
You want to fight about it?
Yeah, I'm not gonna stake my position on a hill here on this one, but just ask the question. I have no problem with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is probably the more accurate.
Yeah, I would say.
Okay. Change.
Oh, the his or
Where
her
are we?
best interest?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was
Oh,
a
I got it.
prior committee, but that was one of their rules with, they wanted everything gender neutral.
Yeah, so there.
Yep. All right.
But as that was a prior.
It is a minor change, but
I wonder how that might change. Right.
I don't know how that might change.
I don't see how the word there
I
isn't.
think we
Right,
can
it's
use
neutral.
that.
It's not, that's, we've used there forever.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, there
All right.
we go.
There it is. Okay.
There it is.
Thank you for laughing at my little joke. Safe weapon storage education. This is similar to what we had seen, but I'm going to go ahead and read the full piece so that we are all on the same page, since this is very new language. Given the high incidence of youth firearm accidents and deaths, the district is committed to educating district families as a matter of health and safety regarding secure firearm and ammunition storage. The USC is cited. Safe storage education and resources will be provided to district families, staff, and facility users, including the addition of safe storage information in all student handbooks and at the further discretion of school administrators. From our conversations, we wanted to make sure that education and resources were available not just to families, but to staff and anyone who uses our buildings. So we've added that language. And then also, we want to make sure that some form of safe storage information is provided in all student handbooks, elementary through high school. And then Liz had a great suggestion to add, and at the further discretion of school administrators, because as kids get older, they can, handle more nuanced information. Maybe posters are available, and we want the school administrators to have that discretion.
Do you think that when we have the members of the public use our facility, that we should attach this policy as part of the application process?
Yeah.
We had talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
I'm trying to remember what our discussion
So
was.
we have specific language in our facility users policy around weapons on
Right.
the
Yeah,
premises.
already.
Yep.
So I feel like this may be redundant.
Okay.
And also add, like not only as a facility user are you getting our policy on facility use, but you're also getting our weapons policy for students and staff.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if it was
Should
necessary.
we put that as a reference? The policy?
Oh, and the
We should
legal.
at least put
Facilities use policy?
Oh, yeah, that would make a reference to this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
would make
so that
sense.
there's some connection?
Yes, where would you like that?
I would put it under, at the end.
Oh, in legal references?
Yeah, under legal references, and just quote the policy, the facilities policy. I don't know what the, I don't know the
I
number.
know.
I don't, I can't remember. I should.
753. I'm going for 7.
Would you put
I
the
don't remember.
reference here in this policy to the facilities policy, or would you put the reference in the facilities policy to this policy?
It'd probably be both.
That's what I was thinking.
I would think you would
Yeah,
put it in the
both ways.
facilities
Reference to
one to
this.
this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna add policy, I wanna say it's 753.
I can't remember the number.
I can't remember the
We just,
number, I'm
we-
sorry.
we blank on it as soon as we're
Yeah.
done working on it.
700.
Seriously, we did.
Yeah, I'm
spend
looking
time
it
on
up
this.
right now. 741.
741.
741.
Should know that.
Facility use fees. Actually, I'm not sure if we landed on that title, but for now.
I may bring that policy, I may bring that policy back to you.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Just for fun?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have enough time with it?
Not enough. It's
Not
just,
enough. It's like 5 pages
it's one of those
long.
policies that is challenging folks right now.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna bring it back.
What do you mean in terms of the PTA exceptions, the carve-outs?
It's the booster carve-outs. It's the organizations like the PTA, PTO, raising money for the school. I'll use the booster club. And they're not really part of the school organization, right? They raise money that helps defray costs for those athletic teams, right?
Right?
So they raise money for uniforms, or they might raise money for a new mat, or they might raise money for whatever, right? And so then we turn around and charge them, and yet that money that they raise impacts our kids.
So the new policy should be clear in the committee's intent, which is that we carved out an exception for PTAs and boosters. Anyone who is using the facility to raise money for school purposes does not have to pay a fee. They do have to have an insurance policy.
We said they had to have insurance. I think the issue is around the use of facilities and the custodian.
Well, but we also gave you discretion to waive additional fees on top of the use fee. So you say you want to visit it again, which is fine, but I think that we actually have answered those questions in the text that we.
Okay, I just want to make sure
Yeah,
But
everybody's on the
sometimes
same
real-life
page.
examples are helpful, it all looks fine, we think it's clear, and then, you know, I show up to host my cross-country banquet, and what do you mean I have to pay for this and do that? Like, how does that, you know, yeah.
Because, you know, remember, when we have an activity, not only is the fee, the insurance, which they have to purchase.
Yeah.
There's also the custodians that have to be available to set up, take down, right? And is there a fee for using a particular room or, you know, area in the school?
We can look at it again. I have a question as
I'm
to.
probably gonna bring it back, and just to walk through it with everybody. This committee has been really worked hard on it, knows it best. But that's not for tonight.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would appreciate a proposal.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we worked through those issues.
Yeah.
But if the language doesn't properly reflect that, I'm happy to look at a proposal for how to, because I feel like the intent is
It may be the
there.
interpretation of it.
Yeah,
Language.
yeah.
Question I have is, they use our, you know, that just popped into my mind, and maybe it's not even important, but they use our facilities to raise money to purchase something that we have no control over whatsoever. It can say anything, it could be anything.
What are we talking about?
Well, if they use the facilities and they're using it to raise money for something for a group,
Okay.
and let's, you know, do we have any say over the appropriateness or the applicability of that
Yeah,
group?
athletic director would clearly, if they're
They
buying
would.
mats
Yeah.
or equipment for
Jackets
All of it, yeah, you have to.
has to be cleared by the athletic. Sayings on a jacket, you know, certain, I'm not sure what all it would entail, but I just am thinking, do we have any, we're sanctioning this and we're supporting it, do we have any control over it?
I don't know about
Just a
that.
question.
I'll let you've delved into it.
In all my years of coaching in our district, which was 20, and being the booster club, because cross-country and track doesn't always have, you know, parent-like, anything that we bought or the kids were gonna wear, like, we always did like a cross-country shirt for the fall and an indoor track shirt, and always had sayings on it. I always had to show them to the AD before,
I'm pretty sure
because if they got a
Steve sees
complaint about it,
everything. I'll check with Steve.
Just check to see that it
I will.
needs to be
I
how
made
it
a
is.
note.
I'm just curious, I don't wanna stifle any donations, but, curious as to how broad that
Yep.
can be.
Will do. Sorry, Madam Chair, for going down another road.
That's
but,
okay. I
that
mean, it's about
facility, just to
policy,
give you
so-
a heads up on it.
Okay, well, and with that, our final sentence. All families and staff will receive written notice of this policy at least once each year. I feel like that might be redundant to what we've added around student handbooks.
That
we
was,
give
that was
everybody a
taken from
student handbook
another
every year?
place.
It's
Right,
electronic.
right. This was
Yeah,
former language in the policy that just moved down to be
Yeah, we-
included.
What happens in the student parent handbook, because I look at it every year, is I provide the list of, say, the top, and it doesn't, there's no top 10, because there could be top 15, but that is definitely one of the ones, it even says in the policy, obviously, that it will be provided, so the list provides it. It doesn't have an automatic link, I've gotten a lot of fight back on that, and it's too hard to keep up with, but
Yeah.
but it is a little redundant in that it will be in the parent handbook. So they have access to it, they'll have the notification of it, and then they can go to the website. But written notice of the policy, they receive written, I guess it's the policy number, the written, they
Oh, I
don't get
see.
the actual policy.
So it is different. So there's
And staff's included in this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm fine with it. I think it's different enough because paragraph 1 covers the actual addition of information around safe storage as opposed to notification of the policy. Great. Okay, so starting from the beginning, does anybody have any questions, comments about the new language, about the policy as a whole? Curious to know if Karen and Kathleen have any reservations or
I went through all
concerns.
the legal references, just because there were some in here that I looked at and I went, ooh. The convicted felons, the 153, the 159.3, the protection of persons from domestic violence, some of the general definitions under the 6.
Oh, you're talking about the legal references.
Yeah, the legal references. Normally the way we've done it in the past is unless we speak to it in the policy, we don't cite to references that aren't specifically included. And so, those were the ones that jumped out at me when I looked them up, and I was like, I was curious as to, maybe there's a specific reason.
It was only the verbiage regarding the weapons and firearms and the definitions. Because in order to get the definitions, at least that's how I looked at it, I had to pull from all these different RSAs. There was no RSA that clearly defined all of these things in one place.
Okay, but like convicted felons?
Yep, that's
The
where.
159.3?
Well, that was the pistol, revolvers, slungshot, metallic knuckles, billies. That was citing what those listing weapons. There was no other. So I was looking at Oyster Rivers
Yeah.
and going back to see where would those come from, and that's the only place that I could find as a definition for weapons.
Yeah, because when I went back and looked at I think it was 20 U.S. Code today, I was trying to find the definition of weapons. It had the language that you all have added about expelling a projectile by the action of an explosive. That came from, I think, the 20 U.S. Code.
Well, and that's covered in the Gun-Free Schools
Yeah.
Act, which I actually think
up
is
to you all if you cite them. I doubt anybody's going to look them up. But again, if there's any sensitivity, what do we need to know about convicted felons? I understand what you're saying, Liz, about the definitions, but that and then
I mean, I don't care
domestic
if we don't cite
violence.
it.
Yeah,
We
I
should
don't
just
think
say
we
that those
cite
are
it.
weapons.
yeah,
Yeah,
like we
then that's fine.
decide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if we're looking for that, when we talked about lookalikes,
Yeah.
I couldn't find that specifically listed other than started gun within the firearms definition of domestic violence. But I think that's
Yeah.
a fault to New Hampshire law.
They don't-
They're
I
not
don't know.
defining, there's nowhere that I can find like a comprehensive definition to what a firearm is versus what a weapon is without going through all of these different RSAs. But again, if we just want to list the weapons, I really actually don't care.
Yeah.
I'll list more weapons.
Let's get a list.
That answers the
No.
question I had though, about the title of the policy. That makes sense.
What was your question?
Oh, just why it was specified like weapons and firearms, but Liz just explained it.
There's so many. Okay. So Karen, is your recommendation that we remove any legal reference that isn't already cited in the policy?
I personally don't think, yes, I would recommend, the 193, and that was the other thing I had, the 193 reference should be, I gotta look at this again in my notes, I apologize. It looks like, it's a 193, Liz, maybe you can pull it up, I think it's a 193-1, it's unclear to me looking at it, it's hard to read what the exact citation is.
Oh, yeah, it looks like this, the
Because it
disturbance
looks like a
one.
one and a, maybe
Looks like
a
an
Roman
I
numeral
one.
I.
I think that's what
It's an
happens when
I
we
one.
convert PDFs to Word
Yeah,
documents.
And then on the suspension and expulsion of pupils under the RSA :13, I actually found it under RSA Tat D :1 Roman numeral 2. So I can run a check on these again, or maybe that's the Safe Schools site, but there are a couple sites that I was like, that's.
How about this? Would you be willing to submit an edited legal references section that you're
Absolutely.
satisfied
Yep,
with?
Yep, I think that's, yeah.
'cause I
Unless
feel-
you all are wanting to forward it, which I would understand.
Well, I think we can forward it with amendments.
Yep.
As long as we understand that the legal references will be updated, that slungshot will be combined into one word,
Yep.
I'm gonna buy these, I'm gonna get one.
that, I know, right? Just for fun.
Me too, pink.
That Pren 1 of weapons and firearms on school property will adjust the notification, so the shells and the mays, and then his or her will become there. So those, so far, are the amendments we've discussed. I think they're small enough that I'd be fine with moving this to the full board tonight, understanding those amendments will get made, but I leave it to the committee.
No, I think that makes sense. They're not policy meaning amendments, they're just,
Making
Logistical
final,
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
final
yeah.
tweaks, final adjustments.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
understanding that first reading and second reading, there is a window of time in which anyone can make amendments or propose amendments to the policy before it's finalized.
Do you want me to read this 193:11 disturbance?
Sure.
Any person not a pupil who shall willfully interrupt or disturb any school shall be guilty of a misdemeanor.
well, hot dang.
That is amazing. 193:11. Got it.
Is it 11 or is it 1?
It's
It's
11.
11.
Maybe
Must
This
be a
is just
rowdy fan at a basketball game.
Okay.
Nuts and bolts, no.
any person not a pupil who shall willfully interrupt or disturb. When was
As
this
a
last?
coach.
adjust- It was first written in 1887,
There we go.
but last tweaked in 1973. Love it. I think we should include it just.
Liz,
right
can you
as-
pull up 193:13? I think it should be
Include it.
suspension and
Yeah, I'll
expulsion
include it.
of pupils
193.
instead of students. I think
Oh.
it's of pupils.
13.
But as you've asked, Cara, I'll just turn these around tomorrow. and
Yeah.
put 'em
Pupils.
in- Yeah. So, yeah, strike student and put pupil.
All right. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just updating that section. All right. Well, acknowledging those amendments, I will accept a motion to move this to the full board for first reading.
So moved.
Moved by Liz Boucher. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jim Richards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Nice work, everybody.
Yes, nice that we have safe storage and
I love it.
included in this because it's such a critical thing.
Great, great, great. All right. With that, there's nothing more on the agenda, but I will turn it over to Kathleen and Karen if there are things they want to update us on.
Yeah, you asked for a list of potential upcoming policies, things that we needed to address. So Karen and I worked on the list this week, so you can take a peek at it. I'll wait for you all to get it.
Okay.
Ooh, did you not make enough? Oh, good, yeah. Enough. Sarah, I'm sorry, then we not, I can.
No
do
worries.
this.
We can share.
We can all share.
I'm not sure.
So what I tried to do here is let you
I'm
know.
watching hers.
Okay, I wanted to let you know what is obviously what's
Got an
out there.
email
Some of
right
these
here.
are still connected
My
to
list.
our Title IX deep dive. So all the 528s, and those haven't changed in light of the, going back to the 2020 edition. With regard to pregnant students, that's still a protected class. Nothing has changed. So those three were in your November 24 file. So
1, 2,
whenever
and
you feel
3.
like you can read them, they're there for you. Jack had asked, 528.2 is, 520, they're all in there. 303 is a new policy, electronic digital records and signatures that Jack asked for. I worked on it. It's new policy for us, so Jack has the final, and once that's ready, we we can move it forward to the board, to you all. High school graduation requirements was updated in 2024. Very minor things like, for example, the FAFSA. It used to be that we had to fill them out, that students had to fill them out. Now we just have to make them aware of it. Some other really minor changes, but that one's ready to go. I gave it to Tim Herbert and asked him for comment and review.
We might want to hold on that.
You think there's going to be more?
I do.
Okay.
On which one?
671, the high school graduation requirements.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
let me see what's on the docket. I'll get an update on all the policies, all the
Legislation.
potential legislation out there, so let me take a peek at it. But
Okay.
we might hold off on that one just because of recent stuff that I've
Okay.
read.
Yep. 304 is another new policy that Jack asked for on crowdfunding. It's ready, it's with him for comment and review to tailor it to our needs if it's different from what the New Hampshire School Board Association Go By recommended.
Does everybody know what that is?
That's-
Crowdfunding?
Yeah,
Okay.
A GoFundMe account.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or what are the teacher accounts, like,
Yeah.
fund my classroom?
Yeah, those
Right.
Amazon
Right.
accounts.
Yeah.
Teacher pays teachers, there's different things like that, so we need to
Tons
get
of our
a-
teachers do those.
We gotta get a handle on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We should be updating our data governance and security. IT's gonna, they've got it. We had some turnover in IT the last time it was handed down, so. And then there's a new series in the 700s. I haven't found a number yet, but we're required to have a chemical safety, chemical hygiene policy and a plan to join our others. And Matt worked on it. That's in the works, so that should be easy if you
I
want to see
reviewed
it.
it, I reviewed it
You've got
several
it.
times, yeah.
Okay, good. The suicide prevention plan, 532 is ready to go. Fern has had that and is ready to present when you all
It is ready to present, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. 531, the health procedures manual is in rewrite. I've already looked at it. Laura Anderson is looking at it, and I had confused that initially with our special education manual. It's voluminous. It's about 287 pages. I reviewed it. John gave it to me. They've made a lot of changes, and it's in administrative channels right now. But those are the ones that,
So what
are
does
alive
health
and well.
procedures manual cover?
The health procedures manual is sort of our, it's our concussion protocol.
Oh.
There's about 15 policies that we put all into the into that
Right, which
manual.
makes sense. So it's things of
A
a
lot of-
health-related nature that could happen during the school day kind of thing?
Yes,
A lot of s-
immunizations,
Yeah.
medications that they're allowed to give, the nurses are, it's pretty expansive.
Okay.
It's odd to call it a manual when it's a policy, though. I just
A lot of
find
school
that-
districts have them in the policy book, right? And Concord, for some reason, chose to develop this policy handbook of all the health issues and put it all under one cover. It's, in the past, has been reviewed by the district's, doctor that we have on retainer. And then all the policies relevant to what Karen just described were in there, but not policies in your policy book.
Yeah.
So it's important that you review it because it's got all the information in it about how to handle those situations.
Are any of these covered under laws and statutes and things?
Oh, sure, because
Yeah,
you think about
immunizations.
many of them, medication and concussion
shouldn't we-
protocols,
Yeah.
all of that is covered by RSA, so.
It's so indicative or descriptive of what life was like. You know what I mean? Like the way things become a manual and it's over here and.
Yeah,
it's just
like I
different.
said, most districts that I've worked with, they are embedded right
in
into the policy
Yeah,
book.
which I would imagine they should be.
So you know what? We can even talk about that when we
Yeah,
bring it
yeah,
up.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you feel like there's pieces in there that belong in the policies, we can do that. You can do that. You can do that and
Are you
make it.
saying like concussion would be its own policy instead of in a big manual? Is that just what I'm hearing? Like you'd
It's
separate.
just, there's
That's
so
much what I'm
many
hearing.
pieces to health now that, we didn't always have, medications and who can give medications and it's all, done by law.
Will be
instance, the
interesting to
principals can
read
give
those
medication.
250.
Right,
That's just the
so
special education.
the benefit
Yeah.
of having them
And all the
split out into
forms.
separate policies is that we can visit policies that change more often
Yeah, it's not
without
buried into a
having to.
big giant document.
Right.
Right,
Right.
and this document hasn't been updated for a while,
Yeah.
and when Laura Anderson came on board, that was one of the tasks we asked her. Of course, she's been covering for school nurses so much that she didn't get it, finally she's got it, it's done, I
Oh,
mean,
good.
we're just cleaning it up and getting it ready to bring to you.
Okay, so that's in cleanup mode, not quite ready, is what I'm hearing.
John is the same way in the special education, and that should stay there. That should have a manual, everybody sees it, everybody uses it, it's in all the schools, it's in the hands of all of our educators. I think that's where it belongs.
Okay. Thank you for this. In terms of building out our next agenda, I'm gonna say what I think should happen, but obviously the committee members, please let me know what you think. I think we should look at 528, 528.1, and 528.2 sooner than later, because it's directly related to all the work we've just been doing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And also, they've been ready for us for some time. I'd like those to be at the top of the agenda for the next meeting, and if you could put them in the folder for the next meeting, so that I don't forget where they lived in November.
Yeah, that is
So
helpful.
they'll just be moved to our current folder. It sounds like the next thing on this list that is ready to go is the chemical safety and chemical hygiene.
Well, I'm not ready to do that, because even though I've reviewed it and gone over it with Matt, I asked that Lynn Viscus at the high school, who is the facility for the science department, facility chair, if you will, I want her to review it. So
Okay.
I don't know if Lynn has done that.
Okay,
and
so that's
it's-
still out for review.
So the one that I think you might be able to do is the electronic signature.
Yeah, that's super easy.
That's really pretty easy.
So
and-
Jack has it, it
Yeah,
says it's
that's,
with
yeah.
Jack for review, but
He's already reviewed that.
Okay.
And crowdfunding.
Yeah,
Both of them are with
both
Jack.
those
yeah.
two, crowdfunding and electronic signatures, we've done all our homework on.
Okay,
We currently use electronic signature
That's
pretty
correct.
extensively.
And that's, it
too,
came
yeah.
from the policy committee. They wanted a policy on it, knowing that we were using that. Crowdfunding is something that Jack's been concerned about.
yeah, makes sense.
I mean, an example is somebody wanted to do some kind of fundraiser for some group from overseas, but it required that we give them our DUN number, which is a number that's assigned to the school. And, we
Not-
said, no
not these
way.
days, yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
And so we need to be,
Yeah,
we need
I'm
to
happy
be
to review that.
careful, especially with
Sooner than
all
later.
of the stuff that goes on with security.
Okay. You said, so just going through the list then, number 5 is still with Dr. Herbert for review?
Yeah, but 5 minutes. I mean, there weren't any big changes. They changed grades to competencies pretty much.
What,
So
what are you
he's-
talking about?
Number 5,
Number
policy
5,
671?
671.
Graduation
You wanted to wait
requirements.
on that.
I want to
Bob.
wait,
Right,
because
that's fine.
I think that I'm seeing pieces of legislation that may only have us turn around in a few months and redo it again. So
Got it.
give me a little more time to
Totally
look
fine.
at the legislation that's out there to see if we're gonna get,
Okay.
Yeah, just today in the State House, there was a bill to eliminate huge chunks of the adequate education.
I thought that was gonna be done tomorrow, that was today.
art, music.
Yeah,
I wrote it
Representative McGuire's
and said,
Pittsfield
"Don't be a
bill. Yeah,
dumbass."
exactly.
So let's hold off.
Do you have
on
a favorite
that.
song? Huh.
I'm happy to hold up. I'm
I
just
mean, I'd
thinking
be
about
happy if you
building out
wanted
our
to defy
agenda.
that legislation, but then again,
I mean, you can always go beyond what's adequate, but
right. You have that right to do that
Okay.
as a board.
Do you have any of these that are pressing legally that we need to get done within a time frame?
Well, the one that's really important that Matt wants done is chemical plan, because it's tied to a review by the state of the high school, and that, the safety check and the health review that we do. So that's why got it off to Lynn to take a peek at. So maybe I'll have it for you for the
What's-
next meeting.
I mean, how pressing is it? How many months do we have
To get it done?
to get it done?
The last email I saw was they wanted it yesterday.
So-
Because he wants to give us the certification
Yeah.
necessary from them,
To drink.
and that's the last piece.
Right, so I think what I'm asking is, you just said it's not ready for review,
It's not,
but we need to review it
right,
like yesterday.
Yeah.
So can you let us know when it's ready?
yep.
But I don't want to necessarily put it on the agenda for, I
Yeah.
think the next time we meet's what, February 29th?
Yeah, we meet again this month.
That's not a,
I
that's,
forget when it is.
no. If you look at your agenda, we have a well-intentioned footnote that our next meeting will be held on February 6th of 20XX, which means we're never meeting ever again.
You have the
There's no
third,
February
20XX is
29th.
just a secret.
So we are actually, oh yeah, we've got
This
winter
year.
recess, so we are meeting
Next year.
again. Oh, we don't meet again until March 31st?
Yeah,
March 31st.
Bazinga.
I know.
remember with the budget, when we talked about that, with all the committee the budget deliberations, we put a lot of committees off.
Okay.
You were
Well-
the only committee that we kept going,
Well, then-
I
actually.
think we need to meet to do this. Is it how press? I mean, I feel like this is pressing. Do we
Well,
need to meet to just
We
look
have
at
the
this?
week of March 10th, remember, that was a.
Right, that free
you-
week.
You noticed that at the last board meeting, and, so we could plug something in there,
Will you have our chemical
yeah.
thing?
Well, I'm hoping, I'm just gonna double check to see, cause
You're the superintendent, you can make it.
Can
I
we,
can make
can
it
we
happen.
pencil in Monday, March 10th?
Yep.
For a policy and communications, if the chemical safety policy is ready to be
Okay.
reviewed?
Yep.
And then because it is budget season, we will say that's the only thing on the agenda. We'll meet, we'll deal
We
with
may have a
it,
budget meeting afterwards.
and we'll likely have a budget meeting afterwards.
Maybe.
And then that way we can still keep 528, 528.1, 528.2 at the top of the agenda for our standard meeting on the 31st.
I think that's a good plan.
Okay. And then,
If I
well,
have it, done by the 31st, can I do that?
well, we just have to think
We-
about time, because when we meet on the 31st, we've got those 3 policies, and now we've got the 2 policies from Jack.
That's a lot, you know.
That's a lot
Mm-hmm.
for one
We're
meeting.
never gonna get through all
So-
No, we'll never get
The,
through
the
it.
nice thing is 528 and 528.1 are very, I mean, they're very similar. It's just that one applies to personnel, one applies to students. We might even wanna combine and we'll see.
Okay.
Because the accommodations are the same and so on and so
Oh,
forth, but.
yeah, for sure.
So you'll get through those pretty quickly, I
Okay.
think. But I wouldn't mix them up. That one chemical safety and the plan is fairly long, Kathleen, as I recall, the plan, isn't it?
Yeah, it had a lot of detail.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
we need to make sure Matt or Lynn or somebody's available as a subject matter expert too.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, you let us know, but I'd
Yeah,
say
let
the
me-
10th is the date that we would add something.
Okay.
And then but we're gonna assume on the 31st of March, we're gonna meet, we're gonna talk about those accommodations policies. We're gonna talk about the 2 policies that Jack is putting forward or has recommendations on for electronic signatures and crowdfunding. At that time, if we haven't already met about chemical safety, it needs to
Okay.
go on the list. And then what are we doing about the suicide prevention plan, which I feel like is overdue.
It is. It's overdue.
It's overdue.
So can we schedule a meeting, 2 meetings in March?
I kind of feel like if you guys, I feel bad.
No, I don't feel bad, but I feel like we need to,
If you guys are okay with it, do you want to check and see if it's possible
To do it on the 10th?
to split up this list between, like, we're going to meet on the 10th and the 31st?
Yep.
And then based on what is ready for us to look
even
at.
if, say we ended up needing one or both of those nights for budget stuff in that empty week, and how sometimes we find we need another meeting. But if the policies that are quick, like the one from Jack, the signature one, you know, maybe there's a couple we could get done in 30 minutes, and then we go into a budget
You're
meeting.
not really gonna be able to do much in the budget on the week of the 10th, because remember,
Oh, right,
you're
'cause
approving
the
it on the
dates.
5th.
Right,
You
okay.
gotta give yourself
You gotta-
10 days, and then for posting
So we
and all
can't do
that.
anything
You will
anyway.
have made a decision on a draft budget on the 5th, to be heard in public session on the 17th and 19th with the
Right.
community, you know.
But
Right,
there,
then-
there often comes up questions,
Right.
or we want more information on something, because just because the budget is posted doesn't mean that we are
Clear on
locked
it,
into
right.
that
True.
budget, so
True, you're not locked into it.
I'm just,
Okay.
My point was we could be flexible
I'm
with it. I'd come at
conservative on
5
that
and do 30
particular-
minutes. if it meant-
I
I
but-
agree.
Because you do have
So let's do it.
open sessions after
Yeah.
the budget session too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
let's try the 10th.
we're going to assume that we're meeting on the 10th and the
I'm plugging it in.
31st. We're plugging it in. Beep, boop, beep.
Mm-hmm.
And that you, Kathleen, are going to set the agendas for those 2 meetings based on what is available and ready to review. And also if there are any subject matter experts that need to attend those meetings, like if Matt needs to tell us about chemicals, if Fern needs to be there to discuss the suicide
Fern might
prevention.
want to be here.
Yeah, I want to make sure that they're available if they want to speak to these things. because I know I appreciate their perspective very much, so.
Yeah, and when we do
Yeah.
governance, data governance, I'm gonna ask Dan Albert to come.
Okay.
You know, that, I like to have those folks here. John will be here for the SPED and Laura for the health manual,
Okay.
just in case there's any
Great,
questions.
that sounds great. Okay. I don't think there is anything else for us to discuss. Is that all from you, Kathleen, Karen?
No, I'm good, thank
That's
you. That's it, yeah, I'm sorry.
Is there anything else anybody on the committee wants to bring forward, discuss?
I want to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, well, there
And
you
I
go.
want to second it. so-
Okay. Liz made a motion to adjourn. Barb seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 6:36.